There is a question that I've never understood: why the universe allows life to appear. Logically, a world that only operates according to physical laws doesn't need life at all, nor humans who are emotional, suspicious, and even rebel against the rules. Even if there is no life, the universe can still expand, cool, and come to an end. The process may be quiet, but it won't go wrong, but it allows life to appear. And it is not just simple creatures that appear, but those who can dream, feel pain, fear death, but also ask why they are here. So I began to doubt that life is not a grass that grows casually by the roadside. It is more like a choice made by the universe. What does it want? Next, I won't talk about how cells divide or how DNA replicates, nor will I explain step by step to explain how humans evolved step by step. I only want to do one thing, is to use multiple inferences to answer a more fundamental question, which is why life must appear. First of all, what I will say next are all ideas I have repeatedly pondered over the years. There is no scientific proof, and I don't ask you to believe it all, but I think it is worth listening to. Because some questions science may not be able to answer, but we can't help but ask. Science has told us how life came into being. Stars turn into molecules, molecules into cells, and gradually evolve into thinking beings. This process seems reasonable, and there is indeed evidence to support it. But it only answers how life came into being. But it doesn't answer the more crucial question, why life must appear, because even if there is no life, the universe can still operate. Galaxies can be born and collapse, and start over. The laws of physics still apply, and time will not stop. In other words, life is neither a necessity for the universe to operate, nor the result of physical laws. So why did it still appear? What is more abnormal is that after the emergence of life, the first thing it does is to say no to the main direction of the universe. Everything in the universe is moving towards looseness. Heat will dissipate, structures will disintegrate, and information will disappear, from order to chaos. This is entropy increase. But life is not like this. It is gathering, repairing, and desperately maintaining structure. Cells keep themselves together. The brain keeps memories from being lost. Genes guard the next generation, and civilization guards not to be forgotten. It doesn't follow the rules of the universe, but questioning the default answers of the universe. So the problem really starts to sting. Is life just a chemical reaction? Is it on the right path? Or is it a choice made by the universe itself? Is it fighting against something or making up for something? Next, let's start with the first inference. Think about life. Is actually the universe the first resistance to the complete collapse? If it is a resistance, how did it do that? And what is it supported by? We need to figure out what life is doing. We can't just say that life is fighting against injury. That is too broad. We need to zoom in what exactly life is doing every day. You observe any life. The first thing you will find is that they are all trying not to fall apart. Cells are repaired when broken, and the brain will rebuild connections. Skin will scab when it is torn. Plants will grow leaves even if their branches are broken. From the moment life is born, its first reaction is not to explore the universe or think about truth, but to stabilize themselves first and desperately maintain. I am still here, but the problem is the universe is not moving in the direction of maintenance. The universe is trending downward, energy is dissipating, and structure is collapsing, and memory is evaporating. From order to but life doesn't. It holds on to energy and doesn't let it run away, and repair the structure to prevent it from collapsing, and holds on to memories to prevent them from disappearing. You can imagine life as a wall that keeps cracking, and life is the hand that keeps sticking tape. The wall is still cracking, but it tries to stop the cracks from getting wider, but maintaining order comes at a cost. Where does energy come from? How much it costs to repair? Why do people feel tired, painful, hungry, and anxious? These feelings are not design flaws, but the system is reminding you that you are fighting against the injury. It costs to heal. Wound healing consumes energy. Memory formation burns sugar. Civilization preserves history, which requires time and resources. Life is always negative. This shows that it is really against the current instead of just muddling through. But just mending and patching is not enough. If life just starts from scratch from generation to generation, it simply couldn't survive over time. So it did the second thing, turn these ways to fight chaos into memories. Turn memory into information cells that can be passed on. Write the ways into DNA people, write experience into language and civilization, and lessons into stone tablets and books. This shows that life is not satisfied with just living today, but also wants to leave the way to survive, to stand more firmly next time. That is to say, life does three things. First, don't disperse. Second, third, remember how to do it and spread the word. It is not just about living, but more like a relay race. The previous runner didn't finish. The next one takes over. Look why humans have children. teaching children to write, make hard drives, and leave stories. Only by the persistence of an individual can't stop the collapse of the universe. Only by spreading how to resist can the resistance not be broken. So the first inference can be realized. Life is not to follow the rules of the universe, but has been competing with the most universal trend of the universe. It first draws a boundary to pull itself out of chaos, and then uses energy to resist the collapse. Finally, he engraves this practice into memory and replication to make this countercurrent continue. But here we have to ask, since it is so difficult to keep yourself, why does life still need to replicate, evolve, become smarter, and build civilization? Is he living or to hold on to something more important? This is the following, which is what the second reasoning needs to answer. If life is just to live, there is no need to reproduce and leave traces. Nor does it need to become more and more complex, live and end. It makes sense to just disappear like smoke, but life doesn't do that. Once it appears, it shows a stubborn tendency. It always wants to push itself forward and continue their existence. Cells divide, animals to reproduce. Humans write, take photos, tell stories, and build civilizations. It shows that the goal of life is never to live once, but to keep living. So what exactly does it want to keep? Is it the body? No, because every body will break down sooner or later. Is it the act of living itself? Not entirely. Because as long as the damage is increasing, no matter how hard you hold on, it will gradually be scattered. What life really needs to keep is a practice, a way to resist disintegration and maintain order. A way that even if I am gone, and others can continue to run, what he wants to preserve is not me, but how to live. To keep order from falling apart so quickly. So, the meaning of replication is not to have more lives, but to ensure that this way of resisting collapse, this practice is actually a script. This script has 3 layers of meaning. The first layer is information recording, where mistakes were made, what works, what will lead to failure. The second layer is the approach, which is what to do when problems arise, what to do first, and then what to do how to combine to survive. The third layer is the meaning. It answers why I do this, who I am, and which side I belong to. Information is material, and methods are manuals. The meaning is what makes life willing to the reason for actively executing this manual. Only when these 3 layers are combined, will it not be cold knowledge, but a kind of a resistance that can span generations. If you look back at human beings, you will find that this pattern has been repeated. Language is to make experience clear. Words are to make memories not only in the brain. Systems are to make practices not depend on individuals, but become a rule that everyone defaults to. Education is to prevent the next generation from falling. Technology is even more ruthless. It takes memory tools and computing power out of the brain and put them in books, machines, and networks, making them external brains that are not easily burned. These things look complicated, but they are all the same thing: to accumulate the ability to resist collapse. Instead of starting from scratch every generation, replication is not copying. Copying will soon lead to distortion, information will be changed, and practices will be forgotten, and meaning will be lost. So life must learn 2 things. One is to prevent mistakes, and the other is to allow flexibility. Genes are written twice. One tradition will be repeated by many people, and a story will be told over and over again. This seems wasteful, but it is actually to prevent an accident. The entire script will be deleted. Meanwhile, life must also leave some room for variation and trial and error. Otherwise, when the environment changes, the script will fail. It is like walking on a rope, one foot keeping the same, while the other is trying to take a step forward. Here, the problem becomes clearer. The reason why life replication, continuation, and complexity is not to make more lives in the world, but to protect the script for resisting disintegration. He wrote this script into genes, language, into institutions, and civilization, and pass it on to the next generation so that the countercurrent will not stop. But problems also arise. If the script is so important, who decides how it should be written, which rules should be kept, and which should be discarded, what should be continued, and what must be abandoned? This directly leads us to the next question. Why did life evolve consciousness? Why do we not just live, or think, or question, and make choice? Is consciousness a tool to resist collapse, or the most crucial line of code in the script? This is the direction of the third reasoning. If replication is just to keep the script alive, death in consciousness is the hand that determines where the script goes. Without consciousness, life will only repeat what it has done before. Pain is repeated, and mistakes are repeated. It is like an automatic loop program running hard, but it doesn't know why it is running. But when consciousness appears, everything suddenly changed. Life stops for the first time asking itself whether to continue like this. Can I change the way? Does the world have to be like this? Can it not be like this? At this moment, life is not just executing the script, but start to modify it. You can also think of life as a relay race. Before consciousness appeared, each runner can only run forward without stopping. But with consciousness, the person who takes the baton has a choice for the first time. He can continue to run, or turn, or even drop the baton or build a new road, no matter which one he chooses. The difference is that he knows that he made the choice himself. What exactly does consciousness change? Simply put, it gives life 3 abilities that life didn't have before. First, it allows life to pause. Animals in danger either run away, but humans can be stunned for a second. That second is the consciousness pressing the pause button. Second, it can see the future in advance. They play it in their minds. What if this happens, or what if it is the other way? It is like free trial and error. Third, it can ask itself who it is, what am I doing, and whether I am willing to bear the consequences. Once you start asking these questions, you can't pretend you don't know. Why does life have to evolve this ability? Because if the script cannot be judged and selected, it is dead. The world is changing, and the environment is changing. The old script will fail sooner or later. So life must have a mechanism to judge what to keep in the chaos and what must be discarded. This mechanism is not teeth or speed, but consciousness. It is like a light, which shows all the forks, and let life decide where to go. Of course, consciousness is not free. It brings hesitation, anxiety, self-doubt, and even makes people lie in bed and ask themselves what they are doing. Animals only feel pain, but humans feel pain and also ask if the pain is worth it. It is tiring, but this is the cost of consciousness. It makes us no longer just live. But we must find a reason for living, so this reasoning can now be put into practice. Consciousness is not to make us smarter, but to allow life to make its own choices, make a choice for themselves. What you choose, the world will tilt in that direction. What you hold on to order will stay a little longer. What you give up may disappear. And these choices are not written in the sky, nor in our destiny. They are written in everything we do, but that is not all. If consciousness is really so useful, then why does it bring pain? Why do many people know what to do, but still can't do it? Why do some people desperately stick to the script, while others tear up the pain? Is it a punishment of the system, or a reminder? This is what the fourth reasoning is about. To understand what pain is, we need to first look at its role in the life system. Role in the system. First, pain is not a punishment, but more like a bill reminding us that maintaining order comes at a cost. If you want to keep your body, you need to consume energy. If you want to heal wounds, you have to endure pain and bleed. If you want to stick to a principle, you must risk losing opportunities. Without these feelings, we won't stop to think or realize that we are overdrawn. Whether it is tiredness or soreness or anxiety, they are not failures, but are telling you the system is paying. Without these reminders, life will continue to be overdrawn until it completely collapses. The second pain is a boundary, reminding you that the system of life is not infinite. Someone always tells you where is the limit. Physical pain is to stop you from continuing to hurt yourself. Emotional pain is a sign that a relationship has been torn apart. Guilt indicates that your value bottom line has been stepped on. They are not here to make you back down, but to remind you not to hold on in the wrong way. They don't prevent you from moving on, but to remind you to go in another way. The third pain is the switch to upgrade the script. The old way doesn't work anymore. Pain will emerge, forcing you to stop and ask yourself if this method should be changed. A failure makes you suffer a lot. It means the original approach no longer works. A long-term depression may be reminding you that the meaning system you rely on has cracks. Growth doesn't depend on time, but by separating the pain, absorb mistakes, and write new practices into the script. If you can do this, pain will no longer be just a hurt, but a starting point for better actions next time. Of course, more pain is not necessarily better. Too little pain makes people dull, like being anesthetized, and they don't feel anything. Too much pain will make people collapse, like a circuit burning out and can't do anything. So the key is not to avoid pain, but to use it in the right place. The truly useful pain is the kind that can push you to repair, adjust, and start over. The kind that makes you sink, the pain that makes you see no way out, is not awakening, but the abyss. So pain is never a system error, but a necessary signal and a tool to maintain order and update the script. It reminds us that resources are being consumed, telling us not to cross the line, and forces us to change old ways. Because of its existence, life will not blindly replicate the past, but to correct the direction again and again, and move towards a more stable and authentic position. But the problem is not over. Since pain can remind us to repair and change, then why can some people get up from the pain while others can't get up again? Why can some pain turn into strength while some pain only leaves wounds? It means there is a key variable missing here, which is meaning. This is the fifth inference we will discuss next. What we need to answer: where does meaning come from? Why some pain is worth persevering through. With this sentence, the problem is finally brought to the table. Pain itself it only pushes people to the edge of a cliff, whether to take a step forward or backward. It is not the pain that decides, but meaning does. Meaning is like a light in the dark night. It won't take you out of the darkness, but it can tell you whether the step you take is worth it. So the question is, why some people collapse in pain while others can stand up? It is not that someone suffers less, but who sees the worth. Many people think that meaning is given by others, or defined by society, religion, and morality. But in fact, meaning is often forced out by pain. Pain forces people to stop, and forces people to rebuild, and forces people to ask themselves whether to go on. Why am I still here? Is the entrance to meaning. Why is meaning important? Because it can turn the unchangeable into something that can be endured. Death cannot be stopped, and loss is irreversible. But you can decide what these pains leave behind. Some people are swallowed by sadness, while others turn it into a reason to help others. The former is collapse, while the latter is reorganization. Meaning doesn't make the pain disappear, but to tell you where these pains can go. On a deeper level, meaning is actually a counterattack of life against chaos. The direction of the universe is injury, is to spread out and forget, and meaning is to fight against all this. You write a diary, you create works, you keep a memory. It is all about adding a little order to the chaos. Meaning is a tool to resist forgetting. It allows you to, in the countless collapses, you can still say that you know why you exist. Because we can give meaning to pain. Life is not a random byproduct of the universe, but the universe is sorting itself out. Of course, meaning is not always stable. It can be torn apart by reality and corroded by time. Sometimes it even collapses when you need it most. What should we do creating? Meaning again is not a one-time gift, but a continuous process. Every time you make a choice, and every time you bear a consequence, you are redefining it. It is like breathing, must be constantly updated. Otherwise it will wither. Those who can survive not because they don't feel pain, but because they are in the pain, but because they are creating meaning. Interestingly, when you really start to do so, you will find a reversal that meaning is never created by you. You create it, but you recall it. It is like you already knew which way to go, but the pain reminds you of it. That feeling of realizing that it is actually the alignment of consciousness. Life is not about seeking meaning outwardly, but to awaken it inwardly. Pain is just one of the mechanisms of awakening. So we come to a deeper conclusion. Meaning is not a philosophical answer, but in the continuous operation of life, the most crucial self-healing mechanism. It gives pain a place, and makes choices valuable, and makes existence meaningful. Each of us, when we give meaning to pain, we are actually participating in a larger process to make the universe more orderly, and more clarity and more direction. But this brings up the next question. If meaning is not given, but created, then who the meaning we give? Could the universe be using our hands to re-understand itself? In other words, when we give meaning to life, are we also helping the universe find its own reasons? This is what the sixth reasoning is about. If meaning is not only for people themselves, but also the universe is using us to find answers, then things will be different. Is life finding meaning for itself, or is the universe using life to understand? In other words, when we are thinking about what the universe is the universe also using our thinking to gradually realize its own existence? We used to think of the universe as a stage, and life as the actors. But if life is just an actor, why would the actors suddenly look up and ask, who wrote the script and who built the stage? If the universe is just a cold physical structure, it doesn't need to combine a bunch of carbon elements, feel pain, and rebel against rules. But it has allowed this kind of life to appear and has persisted for billions of years. This shows that life may not have been a backdrop from the beginning, but a part of the script. Think about galaxies that don't question themselves. Light will not hesitate, or stones will cry. But life will. Life will stare at the night sky and suddenly ask why it is here. From this moment on, the universe is perceived for the first time. Just like in the world that was originally running automatically, a mirror suddenly appeared, reflecting itself in the mirror. This mirror is consciousness. So there is a bold speculation that life is not an observer outside the universe, but a part of the universe itself, trying to understand itself. Stones can't record, light can't write, but humans can doubt, record, and turn invisible concepts into a language that can be passed on. This behavior, it is likely that the universe uses us to remember itself, so that everything doesn't just happen and begin to be understood. If so, the meaning is not just psychological comfort, but the way the universe remembers. Without life, the universe is just cooling, expanding, and collapsing. But with life, the universe begins to be told, recorded, and explained. You write history, you create stories, and preserve memories. In fact, it is all about fighting against a terrible thing, forgetting. The universe will forget everything, but life can't. The question becomes sharp if meaning doesn't belong only to us, but also the universe. If meaning belongs not only to us, is to settle ourselves, or helping the universe achieve a certain self-understanding. Every word we write and every choice we make might actually be driving a larger process. Let the universe run from now on to knowing that it is running. Thinking, so consciousness and meaning are no longer just byproducts of life. They are more like a program written by the universe program that we think we are looking for answers. But the answers are using us to find themselves. We are not the audience of the stage nor bystanders. We are more like probes sent by the universe to understand what it is. By now, the entire chain of reasoning is complete. Life may not be a casual side effect of the universe, but a rebellion against collapse. It first learned to gather and repair, and then learned to copy to keep the resistance. Later, it learned to think, doubt, and choose. Finally, it learned to turn pain into worth. Until this moment, the universe is not only happening, but also was perceived, recorded, and reflected for the first time. So the question has changed. What we should ask now is not why life appeared, but since life has appeared, what are we going to do with it? If we are the one who can resist, and the clear-headedness against forgetting, then every decision we make is not just for ourselves, but also a response to the universe. The universe doesn't tell us the answers. It just puts the paper in front of us, and a pen in our hands. The meaning is not written. It is waiting to be written. Whether to write or not, how to write, whether to write or not, it is all up to us. As for whether the universe is listening, we don't know. But what is certain is that if this light will eventually go out, at least it must have illuminated something instead of existing in vain.